Hello, welcome to another Travel with Kayla video. This time I'll be talking about more tips and tricks about how to travel Europe. I used to be a broke college student. Now I stopped studying currently, but I'm still working and we're just trying to save as much money and travel at the same time. Tip number one, what should you do when traveling around Europe? So there's three options, maybe four, usually three: planes, trains, bus, and sometimes ferries. In my experience, of course, getting to the airport may be a little more costly sometimes. Sometimes it's even more cost effective because it's like a direct airport shuttle or an airport bus that brings you for maybe like €5 or something like that. And your flight sometimes is cheaper than a bus and it's less time. So you're saving time, which is sometimes much more important, because if you're limited to time like me and only have like a month and sometimes only 3 days in each country, then you might want to take the plane. With a couple months of anticipation, you can find plane tickets from, like, let's say the cheapest ever I bought was $5 or €5 in that case, which is like $6, $7, whatever. But the thing is less than $10. So that's the cheapest flight I've ever bought. And then the most expensive, of course, could be like €100 or whatever. But during my past trip last month, my most expensive flight was around $25 to $30 maybe. That's because, so maybe it was $50, but this is why, because I had my ticket, but I got drunk the day before, so I lost the flight, and I just booked the last one to Barcelona, because the day after was my flight to Boston. So that's why it was $50. But if not, then I wouldn't have had to pay. I would have had my flight, which was $20. So it wasn't that expensive. Book with anticipation. It could be 6 months, but it's not always 6 months. Like, you could book with 6 months, but sometimes booking 2 months in advance, smaller flights within Europe, is even better, because sometimes they have 2-for-1 deals. Like if you're going with a friend to Europe, sometimes Ryanair does this 2-for-1 special where if you buy 2 flights, like, you'll get them both $15 each roughly, or something like that. Like, it's sometimes better. But if you go solo like me, it doesn't really matter. Like, that difference doesn't really matter. It just matters that they're cheap. Okay, about trains, I take trains when inside of the country. So like, say in Barcelona, Madrid, in Naples, I take the trains inside. However, from traveling country to country, I really never took in a train. Why? Because I saw that plane tickets cheaper than train tickets, or bus. Which bus do I use? I use Flixbus. So Flixbus, there's many other buses. However, Flixbus, in my opinion, is cheap, is comfortable, and has everything you need, because it has sometimes outlets where I can plug my phone while I'm sleeping and charging, and it's usually very safe. It has a whole bathroom inside. So that's why I use Flixbuses. And even though people get shit with Flixbuses, sometimes it's a bad experience, like sometimes it breaks down, whatever, but that happens with any bus. So might as well use a comfortable one. And we have Flixbuses here in Boston that go to New York, Washington, DC, other places, other states. So I know about them before going to Europe. And then when I got to Europe, like, I heard like a lot of people use that. And it's not even that bad, because when traveling Italy, for example, it takes like, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 hours from like Venice to Florence, 2 or 3 hours from Florence to Rome, and just taking bus, and then one flight directly to the longest destination, which is back to where you started in Barcelona, in my case. Question number 2. Another question was, how did I budget for this trip, or how much should I budget for a month-long trip to Europe? She asked me, specifically this one friend asked me, is 5 to 6 grand okay 1 month trip to Europe for more than 10 countries? And take the train and do interrailing for each one and spend that much amount of money? And yes, you can. I don't have experience with interrailing, so I can't really touch upon that. However, I've heard that a lot of people do it and it's great, and you save more money than booking flight else. So yes, 5 to 6K I would say is enough for a month. That is more than enough for a month, because I'm planning on spending maybe 1 to 2K to do less than that, depending on how frugal you want to be and how much you want to plan ahead, and how much you want to cook for yourself. Like, find a hostel with a kitchen, which is what I need to plan to do this time, because I really don't want to spend a lot on food, because it's not like I want to try local food, but it doesn't have to mean eating out every single day. And that was my problem, because I just made friends, would eat with them, and it was a great experience, but I know I could cut down on some of those things. There are some expensive cities that she was telling me she wanted to go to, so like Switzerland, London, Paris, all these are more expensive than Poland, Hungary, than Rome, because 5 to 6 grand would be okay, and that would be basically enough for all those countries, especially if you are staying in hotels instead of hostels, which she wanted to know in some cases, and I recommended hostels because I solo travel and I like to meet people on the way. But if you feel more comfortable staying in hotels and hostels, of course, and you have the budget to do so, go for it. I just really love hostels and I recommend it all the time to anyone. I'm Poland, Krakow, and specific because I went there, I loved it. I definitely want to go back. People are nice. I haven't met many locals. I have met a couple, but food is good, party's great. The city is just really small. You can walk around, feel very safe. There's the Auschwitz concentration camps, of course. You could take a bus. Usually there's tour guides and everything at the spot. You could book it through Airbnb experiences, I think. I didn't do it. I didn't have time my trip, but I definitely want to go back, and it's super important in history. Like, I would definitely recommend if you're in Poland to check that out. Hungary, Budapest is so underrated because I loved it. It was one of my favorite countries, honestly. Before going there, I've never heard anything about it. After going there, I've heard of some people going, and I definitely recommended some places, some things to do, to eat. These with like goulash and like the cones where you put your ice cream in the middle. Barcelona, Spain is very good. Barcelona, Madrid. I did Mallorca, which is great, but I would recommend those because, I mean, if you don't speak Spanish, a lot of people do speak English because it's diverse, completely diverse. There's a lot of tourists. You'll find every people from everywhere. Madrid is a big party city. Barcelona is more touristy. There's the beach next to it. Madrid doesn't have a beach. However, with everything, you have mountains, you have beach, you have city. A lot of diversity. Great food, parties, supposedly great. I just went touristing with my aunt there, so I don't know much about the party. Of course, you have to be careful in every single place you go to. Like, don't just walk around with your wallet and stuff. Have it on you at all times, just in case. Like, there's pickpocketers everywhere you go in this world. So even if it's like the safest place you think, no, just be cautious. Don't leave your things all around the place. Great. Rome, also pretty good, not too expensive, which is amazing because food-wise, hostels, depends when you go. So last trip I went to, it was also like COVID was starting to end and stuff like that, but during this trip, I passed by Rome and I wanted to stay a couple days. There was no hostels that were in my budget. So every single hostel, which is a hostel, mind you, is bunk beds or like shared room, right? So I would not pay more than like $25 max for a hostel, and the only ones left were like 50 and above, and that was too much for just a shared room. That was beyond too much. That's like a hotel, and hotels were even more. So I decided to go to Naples, which was cheaper, and that's something I could afford, but it's not the prettiest and safest place to be traveling first time. I recommend if you want to go to Italy, I would recommend Venice. I would recommend Rome. Florence is also great. Naples, I would say maybe on your second trip. If you are going in a group or with a group of friends, like, okay, yes. But if you do go, careful. The Amalfi Coast is beautiful. I would recommend staying in Sorrento or St. Angelo, which is 2 towns closer to the Amalfi Coast than to Naples. So you would fly into or take the train or whatever, the bus or whatever, to Naples, another bus to those, or train, smaller towns, which is 100% worth it. 1, it's cheaper, and 2, it's safer because Naples is known a little bit to be a little more sketch. And the first day I was there, 2 girls got robbed by 2 men on motorcycles, and I was like 2 blocks down with my friend and I saw that happen. That was my first day in Naples, so it was a little dangerous, you're not gonna lie. Have your belongings, be in a group if possible, like meet friends and just like go out with them. Don't go out, like we were out late at night. We went to a bar and then that happened a little bit after, so that was a little scary. So for Europe, there's also chains of hostels that are pretty good. One is called St. Christopher's Inn, and they have that in Berlin, they have that in Barcelona, they have that in Paris. In the big countries, they have those. Some places aren't as pretty as others. Like the one in Paris isn't gorgeous, but it's the cheapest hostel. It doesn't include breakfast. Most of these places don't include breakfast, but it's like the hostel I stayed in Rome. It was this tiny place. The bunk beds weren't nice, but the overall people that stayed there were super friendly and the staff was nice. It had a kitchen, and in the mornings they would make coffee and just like have a pastry for you, and that was our breakfast, it was fine because compared to other hostels that don't provide anything, like I definitely recommend Malta. Why? Because the flights to Malta are so cheap, for like 20 euros or like $20, say. from Barcelona, from Greece, or from other places like this. And on one of those flights, take it. It is amazing. Like, I really like Malta. I didn't go in the perfect weather because it was raining at times and it was a little cold. But I still went in the water because that water is beautiful. Like, there's cliffs to jump off of. These are great. There's a whole street to party. You have to go all around the island. Definitely, if you can, rent a car. If you're with friends, go around the island. You'll see everything you need to see in less time. Need to either take a bus or to each place it's an hour. And if you have limited time, I only had like 5 days or a week maybe, and I saw a bunch of things, but I didn't see everything. And a couple of friends that went saw everything. But if you're one person and solo traveling, it's fine. Like, you can see a lot by taking buses. Just wake up early, of course. You can see more and explore, and it's cheap. 15 to 20 euros, and you can use it unlimited times throughout your stay. Hostels versus hotels versus Airbnbs. Personally use hostels, as you guys can already. Hotels is great if you're with someone else, if you don't really like sharing a room, if all this. And Airbnbs is great for groups. So if you're going in a group more than 2 people or between 2 people at least, getting an Airbnb in some places is even better than just a hostel. Because, for example, in Croatia, these 2 girls I met split Airbnb, and it ended up being like maybe like $25 to $30 a night per person. Man, it was beautiful. I think it even had a pool or whatever. But my hostel stay was $15 to $20 a night, but that was just me being one person. I couldn't afford to pay $60 a night for a whole Airbnb for myself. If I were to split that with someone else, yes, that would have been cost effective, but since I'm on my own, that wouldn't have been an option for me. Looking them up. So there's 2 options, Hostelworld and Booking.com. On both of those, Booking.com, you can also find hotels, but hostels is what we're going for if you want the cheaper route to travel in Europe. Should I open a new credit card, or should I just travel with my debit card? And if you don't have a credit card, of course, open a credit card because it's amazing. Cash back, travel points, and everything with some credit card. One is Discover, and Discover does not work internationally. In my case, I never used it in Europe because no one would ever accept it. In Mexico, it also did not work. So book a Venmo card, and that's what actually worked because Venmo uses Visa, and Visa or MasterCard will work in Europe or in South America, which I've been to because I lived in Bolivia, and so when I would go back to visit, I would try to use my Discover. It would not work, but my Visa Bank of America debit card would work in that case. And so I know that my Venmo Visa credit card would also work. There is some cards that have fees, so you have to be careful with that. You have to make sure there is no international fees, and that Venmo card had no international fees. So that's why I brought all 3 cards just in case, because in Mexico a whole deal happened. Like, it didn't have my card, I lost my card, this and this. That'll be another story. But I did bring both, and my debit card. Use my debit card to take out money from the ATMs because sometimes some of the countries would be cash only, and credit cards, you can take out money with your credit card. However, you have to call them, let them know, they'll give you a PIN, and like, it's a whole. Countries like Croatia, countries like Rome, Naples, in my experience just recently, would be cash only in some places. So some of the hostels did not let me pay with my card. They preferred in cash, like their system was down or something like that. But the thing is, we had to get cash, and some of the ATMs had an $10 to $11 fee for my card, specifically my debit card, which is stupid, but that would happen with any debit card, and you just have to be careful. If you can't have cash on hand, like, go to your cheapest ATM that you see. Like, you put your card in, and before clicking OK, look at how much the fee is going to be. If it's $3 to $5, that's great, because there's some ATMs that will literally charge you $10 to $15 just as a fee. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have more questions to help you out and travel as effectively. Have a nice day.